What do you make of the year 2016? I mean, Mr. Zhang, you know the market better than anybody else.
Well, I mean, 3.7%.
Okay.
Okay, that's a number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think, you know, to me, we've seen the industry up and down, you know, regularly. So I think if you look at it, say, 3 years, okay, 2014, 2015, 2016, if you plus the numbers and, you know, divide it by 3,
Okay.
it's quite good, right?
Yeah, better than
That's
GDP.
that's a very, very diplomatic
Magic.
way of saying it. You
Yeah.
could hear there's some kinds of optimism, but Ms. Han, from a commentator's perspective, it seems that 2016 not necessarily as dramatic
No,
as
not at
2015.
all.
What happened?
A hot word, new normal, can be introduced to describe this
exactly
kind
does
of
that mean?
phenomenon. Yeah, I think it is a very good year to indicate the real quality and the quantity of the Chinese movie industry. And given that in the previous year, especially before 2016, there is a large number of subsidy. It's not a government subsidy, but it's a subsidy from the online movie platforms, subsidy from those market-oriented companies. So the subsidy actually accounted for about 1/4 of the 2015's box office revenue. So if you deduct that number, about 10 billion RMB from the total revenue of the box office, I think it's okay.
But you know, our viewers from all over the world might ask why. I mean, why why companies rather, give subsidy to the movie industry? Is the movie industry supposed to be one entity that's making money rather than getting money?
Or giving money.
Right.
I think she's talking about the ticket, you know, side, right? Because it's an internet company, so usually you needed to spend money, burn the money to accumulate the users, to build up the user base, right? So that's the, you know, subsidy.
Right.
Right. But I think the more crucial reason is that really the industry or us as professionals, we're facing a new era.
How would you describe that?
Because the mobile internet, okay, and audience's time being very, very scattered. So it's hard for anyone to spend 3 hours, you know, on the road and finish a movie for 2 hours, then go back. We got so many things to take care of.
Okay, final word from you on this point. Are you suggesting, Mr. Zhang,
Yes.
even as someone from the top Chinese movie production company, that movie is not likely to enjoy a very bright prospect in China because the world is just different today? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is the theatrical market is facing a new challenge. But, you know, you need a new strategy, new business model.
Right.
To, you know, my company grown 73% this year, right? And so I think there are models.
Miss Ansley, coming from Hollywood, she is, you know, shrugging her shoulders at the point, suggesting, you know, how dramatic a number is that? I mean, more than 70%.
Yeah.
Miss Ansley, though, it's a number should Chinese movie industry be proud of, or rather the change or the increase of the qualities of the movies that the Chinese industry should be proud of? Miss Ansley.
Well, that's a tough question, and that really depends on what the Chinese companies themselves put emphasis on.
What about you?
Ideally, I think in an ideal world, we would put it on both. I think ideally you don't want to sacrifice quality for quantity. You want to be able to have the box office numbers, but also produce quality content. And I think that part of what Mr. Zhang is saying about the industry changing and the model changing is partly because audiences have more choice. There's a lot of films out and they have divided attention, but they want to go see very, very good films. And I think that unlike in the past, we do have a lot of choice and that creates more competition, but that's a good thing.
Okay. Why the movie industry at the very beginning was overexcited about so-called IP. Eventually found out what really matters is still the quality of the movies, as it was 100 years ago.
Well, I think
Absolutely.
IP is important. Okay, it's the when you look at Hollywood, when you look at Disney, say, right? I think we need to pay more attention to IP, right? But having said that, quality of the movie relates to the production system. It's an industry. Okay, so I think we have to be realistic.
Well, should we agree with you? I'm not sure about that. I mean, if
Yeah.
you are doing not necessarily as good as you hope to be in China, just blame the system. That
Right.
seems to be a very convenient excuse, Mr. Zhang.
Yeah, are you suggesting that we need to learn from the Hollywood system? But there is another figure
Right.
that will be very interesting. It's that from the Hollywood movies, there are only like 8 movies out of 10 top movies for 2016 from adapted from IPs. The other 2 are from original movies. Are you suggesting that worldwide that IPs can be translated into big success with compared to
We
the
don't
originality?
want to focus too much on the IPs only for this discussion. I
Right.
want to go back to the quality of the movies itself. You are talking
also the
about the system
originality.
is the problem, but the system also produced more than 40% increase for the year 2015. Even though you could argue company give subsidies, but still there was a phenomenon.
And for movie industry, you have a small year, big years, those kind of things. So I think it's normal. Okay, but the thing is, of course, we're going to spend a lot of effort to increase the quality of the movie.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. But also, what I'm saying is, as an industry builder, which is I am, okay, everyone needs to be spending time and energy and money and effort, not only on single movie qualities, but on helping to build up the whole system.
Okay, we're going to talk about the system a
Right.
bit later because it's really a complicated issue. We
Yes.
could spend days talking about that.
Yeah.
Let's just use one movie as an example. There is a blockbuster recently in China and also likely to be shown in theaters around the world.
Right.
The Great Wall is an international cast. The Chinese director Zhang Zhao and the Hollywood written story looks and feels like a typical co-production between China and Hollywood. Take a listen at how Matt Damon, the hero of the movie, talked about it earlier when I interviewed him.
The Great Wall with Zhang Yimou was a giant co-production. So we had hundreds of Chinese crew and then hundreds of international crew, and we were all together and building this movie together, and it was really, really exciting. And I think we're going to see more of those big tentpole co-productions.
Mr. Damon is very excited about the co-production, but in China the debate is the story really have anything to do with the Great Wall itself, which is a symbol of China? Why are we playing around with the symbol of China for a Hollywood blockbuster type of movie? This is really a kind of a demon kind of movie, and also mixed up with actions as well, big stars, typical Hollywood production. Mr. Zhang, is that the direction that we want to go? What if people are complaining, that's not the best movie I want to see?
Sure, if you ask the producer of the movie, one of it, and I give you tons of reasons. I think, of course, it's a tremendous phenomenon, for this movie. And the tremendous effort, both industries, Universal and Legendary and Levision and CFG, we put so
Almost
much energy.
everybody had a part in it.
Yeah, and only 4 parties. But, look at the history of Chinese film industry. We haven't done that yet. Okay, and so it's a milestone in the sense that really the 2 industry start to putting effort together for the world. And the box office and the reviews from the ordinary audiences and from outside China has been great. It's a problem of, it's the issue with the critics.
Right.
Yeah.
That is interesting, Miss Ansley. I want to go to you. On the one hand, you see huge box office, record-breaking almost.
Yeah.
On the other hand, people talk about it and particularly complain about the qualities of the movie. So they reluctantly, but still went into the theater.
Yeah.
That's an interesting combination, isn't it? Miss Ansley, how do you see that?
Well, I think that you have to differentiate between, what critics say and also the fact that a movie such as a tentpole like this becomes what we call a water cooler topic. Whereas no matter what you think of the film, you have to go see it just so that you have a conversation with your peers and that you know what's playing at the box office. So I think from a producer's perspective, there's that silver lining that, you can obviously be very afraid of what the critics are saying about the film, but at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that it's a really big film that everybody wants to go see, especially anybody who's interested in co-production and interested in what's coming out of China.
But the other thing is, we see all of these blockbuster Hollywood movies in China as well. So will Chinese movies be able to be competitive vis-a-vis these imported movies? We've already got quite a bunch of them every year already, right? So what do you think, Ms. Han, about this fact? Should Chinese movies seek another road, or should we also tread on the same path as the Hollywood blockbusters have been doing over the years, which has been a successful example to a certain extent?
I think there are many roads. There are many China-oriented paths. The Great War is a very good example, like Mr. Zhang suggested. It's a milestone in terms of the cooperation strategy. There are only 4 parties of that, but it can't be, the topic of the town. So because it still involves great studios in Hollywood to do a global distribution. So this is one way that one path that we can take. There are many other paths, including, the co-production, maybe including how to change the system, like, the talent training, as well as other paths for the Chinese movies to be more competitive in the world market.
But will it be competitive in China?
Yeah.
For example, 百鸟朝凤 done by one of those very well-respected Chinese movie directors who recently passed away after the movie being put on screen. But the thing is, those movies without much budget would never be able to attract such a crowd as the Great Wall did into the movie theaters. But they are great movies in certain categories.
Okay, those movies are we, as Chinese filmmakers, we're born to produce. But if you look at the modern history of Chinese cinema for the last 30 years, we've been through the period of all these young directors has to go underground. Because the ideology, because we don't have a
At
industry.
the very beginning, at least.
Yeah, you need to have a commercial industry to support independence. Like what I've been educated in New York, okay? And New York independent film industry is very much because we have a Hollywood, right? And so you got Ansley, right? And you got a lot of Todd Hall.
But the question is, Mr. Zhang, I have to
Yeah.
come in here. That is, whether when you are busy commercializing the whole industry, you are still going to remember the very initial dream you had about the movie. Because sometimes, I mean, as someone who is in charge of a movie studio, one of the biggest in China, you have to have certain kinds of goals. And those goals is to not necessarily have much to do with the quality of the movies anymore.
Yeah, no. I mean, I usually produce a couple of every year art movies. And then I have director partners like Emo. He's going back and forth, commercial and art, right? So he's like the system.
To reach his own balance.
Yeah, to reach his balance. So I do like Coming Home.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Which is
then,
a great movie.
Yeah,
then
it is good.
the most important thing is that I signed 10 young directors, under 35, new directors, to do those low-budget movies every year.
Okay. Ms. Ansley, is that the way to go? If we are talking about the system, like Ms. Han and Mr. Zhang earlier mentioned, Is really that the way to go?
It's definitely a good way to go in terms of being able to nurture young talent. I think that Mr. Zhang's right in that you do need the both. You can't have one without the other. In China or elsewhere, actually. I don't think that that's unique to China.
No.
Certainly here, that's the way that talent gets discovered, is through independent film and small films. And they come up, and after they've done a couple of films, then they go on to do really big films. We've seen that a lot here. So it is a way to nurture talent, and obviously, you know, the tentpoles is the way the studio makes money in order to be able to continue making films.
But worldwide, we do see a trend, it seems, some suggest, Ms. Ansley, that blockbuster has really become the trend. It has become the most popular products around the world, while art movies not necessarily is receiving as much response, even when they have won Academy Award, but still they have not been paid much attention to. So from your perspective, both of you are movie makers. I mean, Mr. Zhang and Ms. Ansley, and you're a commentator. Is there a way of changing this, or only money make things go around, Mr. Zhang?
No, I mean, that's, having said that, remember I said, you see the increase of theatrical box office going down, but you know how much increase online movie viewings?
Right. Give me the number.
This year, over 100%.
Oh, good.
So what I'm saying is we're facing the internet era and the mobile internet era. You know, you really miss the chance to go to
the world
theaters.
has changed, that's for sure. We all know that trend. But what about the Chinese movies ourselves? I mean, we see Chinese capitals going abroad.
Right.
Merger acquisition happening almost every month around us when it comes to acquiring of the biggest studios overseas. But is it going to be only Chinese capital when Chinese talents, when Chinese stories, and particularly when Chinese elements is likely to really appear in the movies? I'm not talking about soft power, I'm just talking about the rich Chinese culture. When is that going to have a chance for worldwide viewers? Ms. Ansley, your thought here.
I think that's the golden question that everybody's trying to answer. And going back to one of your earlier questions, I mean, one of the things that's so difficult about movie making is that you've just got so many aspects to juggle that factors into the success of a film. You're not just talking about you know, publicity or theatrical. You're talking a lot about the quality of the film, and then trying to balance the budget with what you can make back and the marketplace trends. So with this, in terms of getting Chinese culture out, I think that right now we're just still in the early days of seeing this cooperation. Everybody's still trying to work it out. That's why we're having this discussion about co-productions and what's problematic. So things are still being ironed out, and it still remains to be seen whether there's a universal storytelling method that people can grasp, and also not just grasp, but can make for these budgets that studios want to make them for. I think that we do see these art house films, as you said, doing quite well and connecting with an audience, but on a very limited or niche level. And that has to do a lot with not just quality of films, but also just with, as we were talking about the system. You know, we're having a very bittersweet period for the independent filmmaker or for producers in general, where you can have the internet age really help you get the word out about your film, but at the same time, how do you not get lost in the shuffle of so many films trying to reach so many people and trying to find an audience? And that's the difficulty between an independent film and a blockbuster that has a massive P&A budget.
That's a huge question mark over there. Ms. Han, your thought very briefly.
I think at the end of the day, movie is about a story, about the cultural product. So before the Chinese movie product and the Chinese capital can reach to a balance that they can enjoy and benefit from each other, there will be still, you know, some chaos between chasing and being chased, you know, between the cultural products and the capital. So movie industry in China is going to still continue to serve the different functions, you know, being, you know, commercialized or being, you know, a representative of art.
Well, we are debating about this. Mr. Zhang has already drawn up his big plan for the year 2017. So, sir, any prediction for the coming year? I mean, this year, obviously.
2017 is a year, I call it a justification.
All right, what does that mean?
Meaning that we need to pay more attention to the system. We need to pay more attention to internet. okay? And we need to pay more attention to quality. But I want to go back about the Great Wall. 4 things. 1, the common value proposition is trust.
Number 2.
Number 2, Western narrative storytelling.
Okay, number 3.
Number 3, English speaking.
Okay, and
Yeah.
finally.
Number 4, to meld Chinese cultural elements into drama. Don't put it on as a stick.
Not superficial, but rather move all the elements into the overall production process. Let's see whether that really worked well for the year 2017. As you said, it's a year of adjustment. Let's just see how well it will be adjusted. Zhang Zhao, Han Hua, and also Melanie Ansley. Thank you so much for the 3 of you for being with us.